computer, whatever you call it. So I'm curious, is she going to table then all of this stuff about obviously the 2080, but appointing her and whatnot?
Well, I think some of that we have to do. We have to appoint her.
I think we have to set a public hearing, don't we? Or, well, maybe not yet.
Not yet. I think she just wants to. That's why I was asking her, because this would take till noon to get explanations on all of that. So.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Mike Simon's wife passed away.
Oh, yeah?
I just tell him there, Mike Simon's wife passed away.
It's sad.
Do you know when Scott does a utility permit, is that only for utilities and right-of-ways, or is that for utilities that are putting up things on private ground?
I think the only time that he's ever talked to us about utilities is when it's involved in our right away.
See, and that's what I thought. I had a question from Doug Flournoy about, quote, an AT&T cell phone tower that is supposed to be erected out by the trailer park, out by you, out on the county ground that's out behind you, there off to the west. Now, I haven't heard anything about it. I didn't know whether you had or not, because it's your neighborhood. They say it's supposedly 7th Street, the 500 block of 7th Street, straight out to the west, somewhere out that direction.
Okay.
500 block would be your...
Well, I'm off 7th Street.
Yeah, you're off 7th, but is that 500 area if you went... What's your address?
1300 West Jackson.
Oh, okay. So that would be different. Jackson, it'd be the next one south would be the 500 block, because I'm thinking 0 is Burlington, 100 is Washington, 200 is Jefferson, 300 is Adams, Washington is Jefferson.
See, I'm actually
Jackson or the next one south of you.
Well, because see, the 7th Street, 8th Street, I'm actually I'm right directly south of the city shed. Yeah. See, I'm thinking it's off west of you yet, south of... Technically, I'm between 11th and 12th, because 12th is where Hy-Vee is.
Right. Oh, there's Stan.
Hey. Good morning.
Hey.
How are we doing today? Good.
All right.
I still have yet to figure out why. Hey, Stan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me at all?
Okay. Talk again so I can turn up my volume.
Okie dokie. I'll sit here. I guess the
wrong direction.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
A little bit more.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
I'll sit here quietly until called upon.
Okay.
Hi, Stan.
Hey, Dee, how you doing?
Good.
Sites out in Jefferson County Park, so because I always do what Abby says, I went out to look to see. I told her this morning, I said I didn't go because, in fact, I'm perfectly honest with you, I didn't take it to her. I thought,
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, we got tripped off the weekend before. It was supposed to rain and then.
Yeah,
not supposed to ring, just fine.
Oh, well.
Well, you know, they taught me this day, maybe that they go, my radiance is 15 to 20%.
Yeah, and then they, you know, they say scattered thunderstorms, and it's like,
Yeah.
Brandon called me, not last time, time before. Kirby got that. Kirby, really. I'm not sure.
Okay, folks, sorry, it's 8:30, let's get started. I'm gonna call this meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors to order. First order of business is to acknowledge the minutes from the previous meeting. No, that's.
So moved.
I have a motion by Dimmitt, second by Sandquist, to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Since I don't see our engineer yet, he hasn't joined us by this or by Zoom or by coming in, let's move ahead to presentation of historical information about the radio tower. Stan?
Hey, how's it going, folks? It was brought to my attention here a while back that the county was planning on tearing down the radio tower. And shortly after I heard about it, I began to do a little bit of research. And then Mort Gaines called me up and said, oh my God, they're going to tear down the radio tower. And I was not aware of, I understand where the tower came from, who built it, but I wasn't aware of all the local connections. So looking at it just as it is, it's a fairly important piece in history. It was built between 1935 and 1936 by the Jones and Laughlin Company, also known as J&L or Jane L. Jones and Laughlin was a major steel constructor in the United States. They worked out of Pittsburgh. And there's no fewer than 7 J&L structures that are on the National Register of Historic Places, which immediately rang alarm bells in my head. I've done some checking, and then I've discovered that you guys are free to tear that thing down as long as no federal monies are spent and there's no federal nexus at all. If you have to get a permit from FAA or from the FCC to tear it down, there would be a federal nexus. I've talked to a few people besides Mort. Mort mentioned Chuck Meacham. His father was the very first radio operator for the tower. Now, the tower was originally a state property. The state police had that erected, and it controlled state police car radios throughout southeast Iowa. There were repeaters in Donaldson and a few other places. So it was originally just single band, one-way communication, where the dispatcher who sat in the recorder's office could contact cars across southeast Iowa. And then after around World War II or shortly after therein, it became two-way. So officers in their cars could contact the dispatcher and go back and forth. But this is one of the earliest examples of police radio use in Iowa. It's fairly significant. We tend to celebrate our police and the things they've done, and this is a major leap in policing represented by that tower. So and again, as long as there is no federal nexus, not a federal penny spent, not a permit scratched out on a piece of paper, you are free to do with it what you will. I've been talking to the SHPO's office, and they are not concerned as long as there's no federal nexus. Now, the other thing that I just struck upon here is the fact that it was built by the state. You probably want to make sure it's still not, it's off of the state property records. And I'm sure that's all been looked at. But as long as there's no state or federal nexus to this whole thing, you should be clear to take it down. Now, and that brings up the idea of, is that something you really want to take down completely? It is an important piece of history. It represents an important piece of history. So I think when you make the decisions to budget for this, you need to first understand where your money's coming from, and secondly, understand what that tower means to our community, and decide whether it should come down at all. Which I suspect the answer is whether it should come down is a solid yes. But one other possibility would be to dismantle the top portion of it and leave the base standing as a kind of a monument, which could be interpreted so people would know that this was an early example of police radio.
Hey, Stan, Greg Morton was gonna be here, and he emailed the three of us this morning and said he couldn't make it. But he's working with Don Hastings on the tower.
Right.
To look into it.
Yeah, I've spoken to Don, and of course to Mort Gaines, and to Chuck Meekum. But yeah, and I guess Don has probably got a dog in the hunt on that. When I talked about saving it, he was a little bit surprised at that and tried to talk it down as much as possible. But according to Don, all that's needed from the FCC and the FAA is just we have to simply notify them. And checking with the State Historic Preservation Office, notification is not enough of a federal nexus to require Section 106, which is the historic property law. And here.
So Stan, this is
Yes.
Stan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So what I want to know is that that tower is not safe. And so if we have to jump through all of these hoops, is the federal government or the state going to come in and make that tower safe and take away liability from us?
No, that has nothing to do with it, sir. That's not even relevant to the conversation.
Well, yes, it is. That's the reason we want to take the tower,
No.
because it's not safe.
Well, I accept that, and I believe you are correct. There should come.
Sir, and there's only one company in the last 10 years that was even willing to go up to the top of that tower. And so the reality of the situation is that historical circumstances notwithstanding, the liability associated with that tower is significant as well. And again, like I said, if the federal government and or the state government want to assume responsibility for it, tell us what we can and cannot do with it, then they need to figure out how to make it safe.
Okay, sir, I believe you have misunderstood me. The tower should not be saved under any circumstances in its full height. I don't even think the federal government would require that. However, the memory of the tower and what it represents to our community is what needs to be saved. Sure, take it down, not a problem. However, it has to be done correctly and through the processes. If there is a federal nexus, and only if, then what would happen would be you would hire a company to do a historic architecture and engineering report on it. An in-depth report talking about the history of the tower, talking about what it's made of, the construction of it, where it came from, how it got here. And that would be the report that would preserve the tower in the memory. We're not talking about preserving the tower. However, one option would be, as Mr. Hastings told me, it's the top portion of it that's unstable. If it could be brought down to, say, 75 foot and then interpreted with a plaque that talked about our police and how they have advanced and how they advanced, that would be an appropriate solution. No one is talking about saving that damn thing.
Could a marker be put there similar to the corner for the lot for the Iowa State Fair? Rather than being 75 foot or whatever out there in place?
Well, sure. There's lots of ways you can go about it. But that tower has been on the Fairfield landscape for 80 some odd years. It would be nice to be able to preserve a portion of it so that people have a better idea than simply a rock.
Okay, well, clearly we'll need more information and
Yeah,
wait
well,
till we get the historical perspective for the one.
I want to see for sure that first off, it's on the historical society register.
right. So
Say again, sir?
It's spending taxpayer dollars.
what's that, Stan?
Purposes.
I missed the first statement there for historic register. You needed to
I
say.
just said I'm not sure. We've got conflicting reports here as whether or not it's actually on the historical register.
To the best of my knowledge, it is not. The courthouse is, but the courthouse grounds are not on it.
Right.
Okay.
But that does not mean it would not be eligible. I believe it is eligible for the historic register, just not on it.
Okay. We're gonna look more into this with the people we've currently got working on it, Don Hastings particularly, to follow through more on what actually needs to take place, whether it actually needs to be decommissioned from the federal government or the FAA, as far as the tower being removed. And then we can look at in the future of whether we're going to put up a marker or how exactly we would memorialize that spot. So.
Okay. Great. Well,
Stan, thank you so much for joining in with us and attending this morning and giving us this information.
Thanks, Dan.
all right. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank
You
you.
bet. Okay, we'll jump back then to meet with the county engineer.
Morning.
Good morning.
Over there.
So, of course, cruiser, blading, drug roads, blading for dust control. They sprayed Min Boulevard and Methane Avenue and Walton Road. And a couple of those put in an invoice to the city for their portion. And then, out at Redwood Avenue, north of 136, there was a short timber bridge there, and that's been replaced with tanker cars. And there might be a little bit of touch-up work to do, but there'll be some settlement and different things happen because of the conditions that it worked under, but for the most part, it's done. They took road closed signs down, but they left up work ahead signs so that people don't go flying down through there. If they did, they'd probably be okay, but it's not. It's not.
Not recommended.
Yeah, not recommended. There you go. So they've also been using the boom mower for brush cutting in District 2, and have done ditching by Beckwith and repaired edge rutting along Paved Road south and west of Libertyville. And then equipment maintenance, patching, concrete, I believe a lot of that was along Pleasant Plain. And using cold mix to fix potholes. And the total patcher to fix potholes. And then they've done some rock hauling that's for the dust control repair the road before dust control put down. Should be happening. I mean, I don't know for sure what the dust control people are doing right now, but it should be, I mean, they have chemical available for us, so they're out doing it various places in the state and hopefully in Jefferson County too.
So I had a couple comments from public people. One of them wanted to know if we could publicize when we're paving certain roads. You know how we do the bridge repairs? Because the comment that I was told was, you know, if I knew we were gonna be paving that road, I would have taken a different way.
Well,
I know
that's
it's
just a slight inconvenience, Dee.
No,
I
I
mean,
know.
the public needs to put up with that, and these guys move around pretty fast,
That's what I told them.
so,
I told him they move around and we don't always know for sure.
right,
But I just thought I'd ask and see.
sure.
And the other one was, can you look at the ditch on Nutmeg and see if that needs cleaned out?
Well, they did clean out oh no, not bad, it's just, I'm sure it does.
Not my,
Without having to look at it. Certain places, we'd like to get that cleaned out. And we had a road notification, but all we could do for the notification was put all the roads that being worked on.
Right.
Mhm.
No, I understand that. I just thought I'd mention it.
That people aren't too surprised.
I've got a couple of questions for you. I had mentioned a long time ago when we were talking about doing these road projects and the possibility of doing a thin overlay of the road going north in front of Pekin School. And that being approximately a mile, I'm not exactly sure how long that is. If we were gonna move ahead with something like that or not, or if we were at least gonna get an estimate from Steve Leonard of Norris Asphalt of what it would take just to do that single lift, and then the county do any rocking for shoulders and paint striping and that kind of thing, just to get something new out there for that 1 mile stretch.
Yeah, I heard last week from Brent that
Yeah,
he was being
that I
asked
was
to
asking
talk
to
to
do
Steve
that.
Leonard.
Okay.
That's as far as I've gotten on it.
Okay, and then I had a email this Saturday from Doug Flournoy, who's a city councilman here in Fairfield, and asking if there is any permit process for putting up cell phone towers on private ground here in the county. Do we have a process like that, other than just utility work within the right of way?
No, but they are subject to the county's ordinance about height for the airport, related to the airport. I mean, that's all that I know of.
did they notify you or give you a notification or ring you up and say, hey, Scott, anything as far as if they're putting one up in our jurisdiction?
They'll call and ask whether there's some kind of county ordinance, and I'll just say state building code if it's applicable. If they're connecting the utilities up right away, they're gonna be working up right away, so they need that. Protections about that, if they're subdividing the land, putting out a certain corner of it and putting it under a different name, then it would fall under the purview of the county subdivision ordinance.
Yeah,
Oh, and the sister
yeah,
also looks into that, changes the valuation.
Yeah, even if they just lease the ground, yeah, you're right, it becomes a commercial or utility, however you want to say it.
Okay, well, this tower location, as explained to me, was if you go down 7th Street to the 500 block and go straight out to the west, it's out into the county out there. I asked Lee, he lives in the trailer park that's out in that area, whether he has seen anything or heard anything about it, and Lee said no. I'm not exactly sure. I have found out from the assessor, though, that Windstream has been going around putting up these small towers all around. And I don't know that that would be it and somebody's mistaking it for installation of a big tower or whatever, but I think this more falls back into the 5G category of people concerns. So
Yeah, the 100-foot tall ones, Steve looked into that. I mean, I gave him everything I had about it because they did do work in the right of way and they got a permit for all of those. But we're trying to figure out, it's kind of like pulling teeth to find out from what are these towers for?
right.
And so I think he found out so that he could come up with a better evaluation.
Should the FCC keep records for if there are transmitters on those towers? The FCC should be involved with delineating frequency space.
I would assume that as well, but when it comes to doing something within the right of way for a utility permit versus doing something for a utility permit out on someone's private property that may be leasing a corner of it for this particular setup, they're not subdividing anything, they're just giving an easement for the company to put something up and utilize that space on their ground. And again, that would fall under at least knowing about it in the first place, and then the assessor having a chance to be able to reevaluate because of commercial use of that particular corner, even though it's a lease situation.
Well, even airspace.
Well, yeah, depending on how tall the tower is. If they're just trying to service people in the community here, the tower may only be, 75 feet in the air at the most.
Well, I know when we had conversations with, when MIU was talking about putting a wind turbine about like Cambridge out in that area, FAA limited that to 208 feet. That was, well, it's 210, but they were going to put it in for 208. But maybe I'm not hearing right, but I'm thinking what I'm hearing is that maybe we need to establish a permit process, not to charge out the wazoo or anything, but so that information is provided so if somebody calls and what we're gonna do, well, you've got to get a permit and here's what we have to have before we can issue the permit.
And that may be just as simple as modifying the existing ordinance that's on the books right now to include that type of situation. Because, I see this coming up more in the future. There's going to be more and more towers to try to get better coverage, especially people out in rural areas. And again, you can get into a situation where somebody's going to lease space on the top of a grain leg that they have clear in the air. Or they're going to lease an acre of ground so that they can put this tower up on it that does the same thing in the area. So I think we need to have some sort of, like you're saying, permitting process in place in order to be able to track when and if something like this happens, because without any type of zoning or any of that type of information that you can gather, you don't have any idea that something like this can go on until it's halfway in the air and 20 people see it and all of a sudden they're bombarding everybody with what's going on, why is this happening?
Scott, remember, a year maybe plus ago, you got some information, or maybe this was when I was chair, about the towers that went up east of town, and you sent it, and I called you and said, what do we need to do with this? And it was more on notification. Do you get that on all the towers?
Typically, I just get general questions about towers, and I ask serious questions about, because, I mean, I have no authority to do anything with utilities that are outside the right. But, you know, almost always they gotta connect into the right of way, so, they end up getting permits for that. They ask about zoning.
Well, that
We
brings
say
up-
we don't have.
Right.
You just brought up a good point or question. Do we have the right or to require a permit for something even if it's being placed on private land? Or, and let me,
Well, there's plenty of things, in principle, yeah, there's plenty of things we require permits of for private land, right? Sewers being one of them, right? And that we need to regulate.
driveway permits.
They're we
We're
only
going
take care of that.
right, that's
part of the
true.
right of way.
I guess that would be but I still think it's reasonable. And like I say, I understand, there might be a fee associated with it, as long as we don't get crazy on the fee. And it's more for informational purposes
Right.
than it is to hit somebody upside the head. But I think, I agree with Darren, I think it's important that you're the first line of defense, if you will. And like you said, we need to know what's going on in the right of way. It's not that we're trying to stop anything, but there's several entities within the county that need to be aware of what's going on. And if the permit requires certain information before it can be provided, then that information can be disseminated to wherever it needs to go.
We also have cell tower people get in touch in my office to find out whether we regulate, new equipment going up in place of old equipment, things like that on these towers. I mean, they're on private land. I mean, the only towers we have are those 400 or 500-foot tall ones that are in the right of way.
Well, see, that's another thing, and we talked about this years ago with the wind turbines, although this area here is not real conducive to it, so it's not a huge problem, but something that you just mentioned, and like Darren said, as the future rolls out, you're probably gonna see more of these. If they stop using Tower A, because now we put up Tower B, which is the latest and greatest thing since built mill, and Tower A is no longer used, should we have an ordinance or something in place that requires them to take Tower A down? Because otherwise, you run into what we have out here. No disrespect to Stan, I'm just talking about the physical structure and the problems associated with it. And, whether there's an agreement between the property owner and the cell tower company or the tower company, that's fine, but I'm, maybe thinking a little bit outside the box, but whether or not we need to have some type of requirement where we determine when it becomes unusable, that it has to be taken down.
Do you know if any other counties have anything in place?
Well, probably ones with zoning.
I would think Henry County would be a good example. They've had zoning for 50 years over in Henry County or longer.
But it sounds like we could do this even without zoning, as long as we
Right.
go through the right steps.
Right, again, that would be modifying the existing ordinance we have as far as permitting is concerned.
The specific permitting would be permits to establish radio transmissions, devices or towers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You make
Existing or new.
Because you make a good point about people slapping them on grain silos. That doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna build a whole new tower if you're just gonna put a transceiver up on the top of a large structure that already exists.
And I think most of those are internet, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the Windstream is all internet related.
And I think that's the ones, those 400 or 500-foot tall ones in the right of way. I think those are internet.
Right, that's what was told to me by Steve Women. when it came to those, but he was the one that told me that they had to come through you, Scott, to do work in the right of way and be able to move that process forward before they could do it. Whereas this is another one that's alleged at this point in time to be a tower for AT&T in order to improve their service in this area, but it is being proposed, at least from what I've been told, for private ground out in the county, and to not have any way of at least knowing who it is and what's going on. We could end up with this situation where AT&T in 25 years says that's obsolete, we don't need it. Now we need to enforce what Lee was talking about, having them remove that tower unless they have other equipment that's going to be put on. And you also have scenarios where different companies will lease space from the tower owner in order to put their equipment on it as well, of an existing tower, similar to what I was talking about with grain elevators and whatnot.
And then you're gonna get into the setting where you have an internet provider. You know, it's at what point do you draw the line? And this probably doesn't qualify, but it would be like for home service when people have to beam to a place to get it to their house to beam it to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going from point A to B and then to point C, which is the end destination, because it can't go direct line side from A to C.
Right, right.
Mr. Chair, we've got a public hearing.
Yes, so it is 9 o'clock. We have a fiscal year 2020 budget amendment hearing, and so we have that paperwork, okay?
Yep.
So we have budget amendments for, let's see. We have a resolution now therefore be it resolved by the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors that the 2019-2020 fiscal year county budget be amended as follows.
Hey Darren, excuse me, can I make a motion to open the public hearing?
Oh, sorry. Yes, may I have a motion to open the public hearing? I have that from Sandquist. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Dimmitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Same side.
Sorry, I missed that. That's on me. So we'll go back to this, the resolution. Revenues for intergovernmental went from $3,888,792 to $3,992,680. Licenses and permits, 34,000 to 43,000. Charges for service, $2,305,720 to $3,197,231. Use of money in property, $47,000 to $57,000. Miscellaneous, $58,647 to $92,047. Expenditures, public safety and legal services went from $3,509,002 to $3,620,469. Physical health and social services, $932,722 to $965,167. Roads and transportation went from $4,249,000 to $4,401,000. Government services to residents, $663,340 to $671,026. Administration, $1,433,065 to $435,640. Capital projects, $10,004,193 to $10,103,193. The amendment does not increase the taxes to be collected in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Be it further resolved that the schedule of proposed expenditures by department be appropriated as follows to the various county departments for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Department 3, Treasurer, $10,261. Department 4, Attorney, $40,000. Department 5, Sheriff, $71,467. Department 20, Engineer, $251,000. Department 21, Veterans Affairs, $11,880. Department 37, General Relief, $20,565, for a total of $405,173. The vote upon final adoption of the amendment as follows. Okay, that's how it's read. Do I have a motion to approve this? Oh, sorry. Is there any public comments? I see that Pat McVan is with us. Someone by the name of Admin is with us. And KMCD News is with us via Zoom. Is there any other public comments here in the office today? Hearing none, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Dimmitt and a second from Sandquist to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, do I have a motion to go ahead and approve the resolution for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget amendments?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Dimmitt, a second from Sandquist. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Yeah, if you've got it signed, you can give Lee and then give it to me. I'll get the final signature on.
Pass that on this way, please.
Okay, we'll move back up to discuss and consider hiring Sujata C. Bertland. I'm sorry if I hammered your name, but as a correctional officer for the sheriff's office, we have a letter from Greg Morton, our county sheriff, that says he approves this effective May 18th of 2020 for a correctional officer with a salary starting at $32,500 per year.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Dimmitt, a second from Sandquist. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discuss and consider reappointing Howard Garrison to the Veteran Affairs Commission. This is, he's on the Veterans Affairs Commission.
Right.
How long a term are these?
3 years.
They're a 3-year term.
Three commissioners, each one, 3 years staggered.
Okay, and then how many terms can a particular person serve?
It's not limited.
Unlimited terms, okay. So do we have a motion to approve Howard Garrison?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Sandquist, a second from Demmett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
There's these two different ones. That one should already be going to, this one should be for Veterans Affairs. All right, we'll move on to action item number 4, discuss and consider liquor license for Cedar Valley Winery. We received an email from Sheriff Morton this morning saying he didn't see any problems with this. Are there any questions from supervisors?
No, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Sandquist, a second from Demmett to approve a liquor license for Cedar Valley Winery. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, can we take a short break?
Yes, we can take a short break.
Thank you.
We have quite a little bit yet to go through.
So I emailed you this SCIWA thing a couple weeks, well, since our last meeting, but since we didn't have one last week, it's been a while. But it's not in here, do you want me to print one off real quick while we're breaking?
Yeah, while we're taking a break, why don't you go ahead and
Now that we're on a break, something I was thinking about with those towers, that, I don't know the process for permitting, but would they for anybody to get snowed under by hundreds of these applications? One of the things that I think is the nature of the 5G system that they're shifting to is a substantially higher fidelity but lower transmit range. Meaning we're going to have like lots and lots more towers or transmitters being put together. So, you know, for a 4G tower, it goes 10 miles. A 5G tower might go 1,000 feet. So in order to fill that gap, you're going to have dozens and dozens of different transmitters in the replacement one. So whoever's going to be processing those permits is going to have their work cut out for them.
Most of them will be in the city, but likely to be extensions out into the countryside.
to get it to farther reaches, I think Chauncey's correct. There's going to have to be more locations for equipment, whether that's a new tower construction versus installing equipment on something existing. There's going to have to be differentiation between the two, I would think, and the permitting process would be different for each one. If you're going to build a new tower, there's going to be a fee associated, and it's going to be more hoops to jump through, I would think, to complete the permit, versus saying I'm going to put up this piece of equipment on this existing highline pole that's somewhere, and I've got the agreement from the REC to put this on this rural pole. It's already there.
Yeah, and there's potential for multiple providers to want to put equipment on the same tower.
Right. So
The same pole. I don't know whether they, all these utility or light poles going up around the city are set up already to accept some of that equipment.
I would bet not.
I would, if they were, somebody would have heard about it and there would have been a commotion.
Outcry, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
Because I mean, you can put the equipment on existing stuff, or they show the poles that you can adjust for the equipment, or poles that are light poles that can have, that can accept it. So,
apologies. Didn't pull it, did it?
I think this first one's, they had it going first.
Well, if the first one's okay, the others will be. So you had told me earlier, Dee, that some of these things for the CDBG grant
We'll need to
and
do
all
it,
that.
we won't be doing it today.
Okay, so there is no considering, it's just discussed.
We need to set a public hearing.
Okay,
That's the main thing we need to accomplish today.
okay.
There's land over there for one of the, bundle bridges.
Well,
So I mean, it's all in the program, all approved.
do we all sign this? or
Yes.
just Aaron?
Yeah, just all three of us standing there in the corner.
We kind of can have, we can have kind of where it's set up any way we want, but
Mm-hmm.
typically, Jefferson County, we have all the supervisors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've all returned, so we're going to resume with the meeting. We're going to discuss and consider the 28E for SCIWA, which is South Central Iowa Workforce Area.
This is a long-awaited saga completed. So for months, I've been telling you, we've been working on this, and so, it's finally done. And this is the workforce area. Again, it's Title I funds, so our current Indian Hills area, which is area 10, or 15, excuse me, is 10 counties, is combining with 4 counties. And so that's what this does. And so Pat has seen it, said it was okay. And then the next agenda item basically is when they sent the final version, it had my name on the sign since I'm the committee member for that. So that, he said we needed to approve me to sign it. So I emailed this out probably a week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've had our attorney review this and has no questions about it. Agrees with what it says at least. This will take care of our fiduciary type responsibilities in this agreement as well.
It's, the reason this all came about is because a few years ago, the Federal Department of Labor audited the state of Iowa, which is the last state in the nation, and said they had too much administrative cost for this part of workforce development funds. So through at least almost a 2-year process, the state has been educating the supervisors who are on this workforce development area groups, and strongly urged us to combine because that saves administrative dollars. So that was really kind of the goal for this. And so the next steps will be, we'll be doing RFPs for providers and hiring a board staff person, the local workforce development boards. And so all those processes have been pushed out a little bit because of COVID. But this is really the first step, and all the boards of supervisors in these 14 counties need to approve this document or it doesn't move forward.
Right. The signature page on the back, is that your signature or
Yeah,
what the
'cause
board
it has-
chairs?
It's mine, that's where the second agenda item right below this one is for me to sign it. So
Okay.
I would be signing this since I'm the,
So we will go ahead then and approve the 2080 agreement prior to approving you to be the signator on it? Or do we need to do those in reverse order?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, so we have the agreement in front of us. Do I have a motion to approve it?
Motion, discussion.
Second.
Any discussion on the item? We have a motion from Dimmitt and a second from Sandquist.
So, is there any fiscal
The
responsibility?
way well, the bottom line is we have that authority now, we just didn't know it. And so what became apparent once the feds audited the state was that the CEOs, what they call county supervisors, you know how every committee has a different alphabet, have fiscal responsibility, but this really laid it out in front of us. So that the way workforce development has been in this state since day one is everybody thought it just went through the community colleges. Well, according to the federal Department of Labor, you cannot have the person who's a provider be the fiscal agent also. And so this is just clarifying that. So this is what that does.
Right,
So,
and then that's discussed in item J.
yeah, and Chauncey and Pat both looked at this early on, and one of the ways it had been worded was that the Clio would have fiscal responsibility. It's really everybody. The way this was addressed is that whoever the fiscal agent is has to be bonded, so that will help.
And in this
Take care
case,
of
the
that.
Clio is Powesheet County, and the
Yeah.
CEO is Jefferson County, and the remaining counties are CEO members. Is that how this contact information works?
Everybody's a CEO. I was the interim Clio from February to April.
Yeah, I remember you
And
talking.
then when we combined, I nominated this Jason, because I had several conversations with him. And, so anyway, that's how that came. So the rest of us are basically our supervisors representing our counties.
Yeah, and the counties included in this are Tama, Hardin, Powesheet, Marshall, Davis, Jefferson, Keokuk, Lucas, Mahaska, Monroe, Appaloosa, Van Buren, Wapello, and Wayne.
So there's no expected contributions financially from the counties.
No, this is all Title I funds. So basically what happens, the federal government sends funds to the state. The state withholds 15% off the top for administration, and this is Title I programs. So then it flows out to the different areas. And so the reason they really wanted us to combine is that if we're combined 14 counties instead of 10, each area has to have, like, hire a person who's a board assistant person that oversees the local workforce board and this group. So that helps spread administrative dollars. Each area also has to hire a fiscal agent. And again, that spreads those dollars because it simplifies it. And so,
So there appears to be no out clause in this 2080.
it's one of the committees, traditionally been involved in. The out clause would mean we would not receive services.
Well, I understand that. But where I was going with that is that, and that's more a question, I think, for Chauncey. Since there is no requirement for the counties to provide any funds, in the future, this 2080 would have to be changed if that requirement was to come about.
This contract requires no outlay on our part. If they wanted us to start forking over money, we're gonna have to go redo it for the contract.
Yeah.
But that was
No.
Okay.
Well, and our board had lots of discussion about this because Iowa Workforce Development contact person kept telling us, this is not a board, we don't need it. And then we're like, well, why do we need a 2080 if we're not a board? If you ask any county supervisors to work together and you're managing money, it's a board in our eyes. So again, it was a matter of the alphabets and the jargon between the different programs not coinciding. So our group, well, all groups that are in the state, you know, because supervisors are involved and you have to approve funding that comes from the state. It's like, no, we need a 2080.
Okay, I have a motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, discuss and consider appointing D. Sandquist authorization to sign the 2080 agreement for SCIWA, which we just approved.
I would make that motion.
I have a motion from Dimmitt,
Second.
second from Sandquist. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we need to set a public hearing for the CDBG Food Insecurity Grant.
Okay, so these next several items have to do with that emergency grant, and because it's federal dollars that are going to the state, there's a lot of paperwork involved, and Pat gets to do that. Thank you, Pat and Chauncey. So basically, we have to check all the boxes off, which means we're gonna need a lot of policies that really don't really apply to us. I have samples, so we'll need to act on these. I'll type them up nicely, but what I gave you is the draft of these policies, so you can look at them, so you know what it's gonna be. And the most important thing we need to do today is set a public hearing, and the way it was explained to me from my contact at the state is this grant came about very suddenly when Brett Farrell from Emergency Management contacted me and said, hey, we want to do a grant on food insecurity, can you help us? And I said, sure, and then he put me in contact with Chris Bowers, who helped to write it. So Chris and I worked on the actual writing of it, and so we sent it in because it's one of those things, if you get there early in the game, your chances are better at getting the funding. So we're receiving $23,500. Part of it goes to carry-on bags, part of it to formerly Come to Supper, which is now Drive-By Supper. And then hopefully a pilot program, and we're still working through logistics on that, which would help reach some of the outlying communities, such as Lockridge, Libertyville, Batavia, and Packwood. That's going to depend a little bit. Originally, when I submitted the grant, we were going to try to take it through Drive-By Supper, but their response has been so overwhelming, the need. They've gone from like 40 people pre-COVID to, I think last week they had up to 84, and they expect 100. So he's working with another group, and actually almost something this week, and if they're going to be able to take that on. But we have the process set up, we just need some people to help. So what this does is make it available for the funding to come, and it's one of those things that organizations will have to spend the money and then get reimbursed for it. So that's why we need to check all the boxes and everything. So we will do this at our next meeting, and we'll have everything ready and send it out so you can, but this is what it's gonna be basically. You can go ahead and look at it. This
So we need to set a public hearing today.
we do need to set it, and it's one of those 4/20. So as soon as we can have that, but I know today, since it's Tuesday, will we still get it in by Thursday or no?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors office. We're currently in our board meeting for the week right now, so you'll have to call back in about an hour or so. Thank you.
Yeah, I won't be able to be in the Their deadline for this week was last Friday.
So if you, today's the 26th, if we go to the 15th with it, is that enough time? I mean, the 4 and 20, not less than 4, but not more than 20. We'd be within the, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How about the 8th?
Okay, yeah, 15th would be maybe pushed a little bit.
How about the
We
8th?
could probably do the 8th. Is there something our office needs to do for that? Like put it in or?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you sent it to me or?
Yeah, it might be on this stuff I sent you the other day, but I'll send it exactly what it has to say. I think the wording is here. Yeah. Maybe we can talk afterwards so I know exactly what you need.
Okay, so we want to set the public hearing for June 8th at 9 a.m.
I would make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion to set that public hearing. I'll second it. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, discuss and consider OT recipient guidance document.
Okay, this is a sample of it. If you want, I can print you copies or just email them to you if you want to start looking at them.
Yeah, you can just email those.
And that way you can see what's in it. Obviously, we'll have to update them for our county, but this is what the state sent. And this is why I just wanted to let you know, a lot of this really doesn't apply to the county, but it's a federal check the box thing, so.
Okay.
And if you have questions, have Pat or Chauncey here to help answer them.
Is there any, I forgot to ask you this question, a lot of CDBG grants, there's a requirement for the recipient to put in.
No, that was one of my first questions for Pat, and he's like, it's a good question, why don't you ask your contact at the state? So Pat and I talked one day last week and made a whole list of questions, and the contact said no, because that was not a requirement for this grant, because it is emergency funds. But we still have to fill out the contract Pat has and is working on it, now that we know this, and basically he has to put something in all the spaces. But it's okay if it's not applicable, and it is not. That was one of the questions I asked early on, and like, it's one of those things, again, it's our first one at this level.
So we don't have anything that we need to approve with this?
No.
So, okay. Discuss and consider policies needed for CDBG grant.
And that will be all these that I will send you.
Okay. So that would be included with that other.
And then the contract Pat will be working on, so I'll send that when he gets it.
Okay, discuss and consider CDBG contract.
Mm-hmm. So that's the same thing, Pat will work on that.
Okay,
And he'll also, the sub-recipient agreement will be in part of that contract.
okay, so the next was discuss and consider sub-recipient agreement with grant recipients.
Right.
And that will be done in the same fashion you just talked about. Discuss and consider increased expense of landscaping. When I asked for this to be put on here, when we got into removing the shrub on the west side of the building, and we were cutting back the other shrubs to be 3 foot away from the building, we found that the base of the shrubs that were on the northwest corner of the building were within 2 foot of the building. So Dave Taft and I worked out an agreement with our landscaper, Oasis Landscaping, that was doing the work to remove those 5 shrubs that are in that area at a cost of $300, because they did a little bit of landscaping along with it, as well as digging out all the root balls from each one. So the contract went from $550 to $850 for the final work that was done. That also included shaving back the large shrub that was still left out there, because that particular type of shrub fills itself back in, and as it goes over time, it keeps getting taller and taller. At this point, it was too tall to be able to even trim it back by our maintenance guy using a ladder out there. So he still couldn't get the top of it, so we had that shaved back farther as well. But everything now is done around the building. We have at least a 3-foot area on the east and west sides where we had shrubs. North and south, we weren't concerned about that because we're paved on both of those areas. So we've gotten that portion of our tuck pointing contract started, and they're still on target for coming in the first week of June. Mike Nolan had talked to me via email saying that the contractor is allowed to go back to work now. Their crew is coming over from Illinois, which was a little different situation than what's going on here in Iowa as far as workers are concerned. And so once they got the approval to be able to come back to work, it's still up to the employee's choice as to whether they will or won't come back to that particular job. In Illinois, it's not the case. If you don't return to work, then you're automatically terminated, as it is here in Iowa. So the contractor is still talking to his employees about coming out and doing this work. So we're hopefully going to start doing the power washing the exterior here coming up the first week of June. So we're moving ahead on that. I would like to have a motion to increase that amount spent for the shrub removal. I have a motion from Dimmitt and a second from Sandquist. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, let's make committee reports. D, you got it?
I have plenty. Since we didn't meet last week. Speaking of meetings, we will have a meeting next week.
Why?
Within a short one. Yeah.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I mean,
Okay.
we don't know. So.
Okay.
Seal. So basically what, they're still working some of the logistics of what I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about the funding, but basically, there's less revenue coming in, and so they're trying to carry over what they can, but take it from what they have. So the long and the short of it is, some counties might need to do a small budget amendment next year, just depending how it all goes. They still are working through the logistics, but it's because due to COVID, tax dollars are coming in slower, and so they were getting less dollars from the different counties. Let's see. And then I had ECI, and that was last Monday. And there's two budget streams that flow through there, but one of them, Tammy had already heard that expected 25% budget cut next year because, the state revenue's off, so we'll wait and see, but that's the first just heads up that she was given about that. Much better news, Tammy Jan Kesterson, who is the director of ECI, has done an outstanding job. She's made 48 deliveries to 21 providers of cleaning supplies, because the child care providers, it's hard for them to get to the store and go buy cleaning supplies, and then when they get there at the end of the day, the shelves are empty. So Tammy really stepped up. She went to all 3 counties, and so a lot of the providers here in Jefferson County received cleaning supplies through Village of Iowa, and they were very, very appreciative. Today for Pathfinders evaluation for our new executive director, some board chair there. One thing we need to do for next Monday's agenda is Josh Larrabee let me know there's a housing developer who needs to approve a consideration of providing support of workforce housing tax incentive program. And so I'll get that information to you. We need to do that because he's under a deadline. And Public Health had a meeting. And again, I just attend those. It's nothing we have voting on, that's their board. But they had continued discussion with Russ. They tabled it. They didn't make a decision about what they're going to do for sure, if they're going to contract or stick with what they have. So I don't have any more information.
Just to follow up with that meeting, they did, the chair requested budget. And so I provided that information to both Steve and Chris, what the sanitarian budget is and how that will apply to if the higher regional utility systems as well and so forth.
Because if they do those, it'll save us some money, right?
Well, the upside of all of that is, right out of the chute, it's gonna save public health nearly $30,000. And then if you couple the $3,000 we spend for weed plus the $5,500 that'll be reduced on our nuisance, now you're pushing 40. Plus, that only incorporated $49,000 of revenue that Dan had projected. And revenues are projections, but irregardless, all of the revenues that come in would go to Board of Health. So Russ would not keep any of those revenues, so whatever they were, and potentially, if there is that additional $10,000 of revenue that we didn't put in the proposal, now public health is going to see a $4,000 plus.
So you might want to connect with some of those board members.
Well, that information was all provided when I sent it to Chris and Steve, and Steve asked Chris to disseminate that information to all the board members. It was put in.
Was that before or after that meeting?
After.
Okay, good to know. Because I felt like.
But what I did ask them to do, not encouraging them to make a decision one way or the other, but I encouraged them to make a decision prior to July 1st.
Right, good. Because I was concerned when they tabled it again that
Right.
they only meet every 2 months, maybe they'll have a meeting.
Now, I purposely stayed out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, P, any more?
I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Lee.
We had a regular ambulance board meeting and a closed session. Pat, are you on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Our open meeting was a regular open meeting, and the financial report that we received from Larry incorporated, moving into the next fiscal year, $320,000 combined from the 3 entities for ambulance purchase. And so we're looking pretty good, and it doesn't appear that we're going to require any or need to provide any new revenue in terms of our budget contributions that we make at this point. And Pat, I don't know how deep I can get into discussion regarding ambulance purchases. Can I get into that at all?
Was there any decision made?
No.
Then I probably wouldn't go real deep into it, other than to indicate that those discussions are ongoing and that you're working towards complying with the terms of the new contract.
Yeah, so that essentially, sums it up. I think it's the general consensus of the board that we're looking to purchase a new and hopefully a demo, but a used, so that our replacements will be on, how do I say this, different cycle. So you're not trying to replace them both at the same time.
Right.
I know that Stacy Worley is working, because she has that expertise in that area. And then something will be provided to the board. It's gonna be sooner than later because of the time frame that's associated with it. And that's probably as deep as I can go into it. We went into a closed session and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, I had a DCAT meeting last week concerning the contracts that we need to renew through them. I went ahead and signed the contracts themselves because it's kind of a motion that we have to go through. There was also scoring that was involved with the different contracts and contractors that put them out there. I was recused from doing the scoring on it because being a new member of the committee this January and only having actually 2 in-person meetings and 1 Zoom meeting, I'm not very up on what's going on with it. We're going to have another meeting today at noon via Zoom, so I'll learn a little bit more then, but we're moving forward with the DCAP.
Typically, when they have a meeting in person for these, Tammy will give her recommendation, but that's hard to do in today's world.
Okay, well, that was all I had.
I just very quickly want to let you two know that obviously you're aware that we're taking over Fixed Routes and Paratransit in the tunnel. We've had, I believe it's 9 drivers that have come over and put in applications that we've for sure hired 8 of them. The response has been good. I must confess, I was a little bit leery about bringing on OT drivers, but so far it's worked out well.
Okay, any public comments? Anybody want to make any mention of anything?
Somebody buzzed you.
Yeah, just a reminder of an appointment I had this afternoon.
Another item I can mention that we had, I guess I didn't update everyone on what Norris has been doing. They've finished all the asphalt on Packwood Road, and they put rock. They were on Friday. They were putting down rock. I don't know if they got done with that. It should be done hopefully soon. And then all we need to do then is stripe it, center line and edge lines, and then
did they get the second layer on Brookville all the way through? I know they were working on it.
I don't know if they're all the way. I think they are done with the second layer, but they haven't got the
Finish.
Yeah, the top lift up down yet. But I think they've started on that. So
Once they get done that, my understanding is they're moving back to Pleasant Plain to get the surface put on that, or are they going to move to Germanville?
heard it both ways. So I'm trying to think which was the last thing they said.
It could change, it sounds like.
Well, yeah.
It could change. I was thinking they were going to Pleasant Plain, but yeah, it could change.
I think that's what was said last time, but that could
Did any of you, by the way, hear from the letters that we sent out? Anything?
I have not heard anything back.
No, and my husband and I had to take him up there to pick something up before last, but my friend had a bunch of people there, so it wasn't a good time to talk.
No, I just remember the scarring that we on that new pavement from my horses right off the bat. So, but go ahead, Scott. I apologize.
Yeah, and then on Pleasant Plain Road, we've got, let's see, had Denco come in, and that got this. We're gonna have this nice new asphalt for 167 North, and then coming in Pleasant Plain, all the cracking from, it was starting to show up. I thought, well, and they had given us quotes for all over the county, and I said, could you do Pleasant Plain so that it looks, I mean, so that it's up to date with the rest of the pavement, or close to it anyway. So they've done crack filling. They're gonna do some slurry leveling on it. I did a little bit of crack filling on 185th. But thank you very much.
In regard to what Darren talked to you about this morning up there by Pekin, it would make sense, would it not, to reach out to Norris before they pack their suitcase and go on down the road, pardon the pun, to see if we could get them, they're already mobilized, maybe they could go up there and do it now?
Yeah, that's what we.
That's what the discussion is about.
But, you know, whether they have
Right.
that, I mean, there's days when they said, well, we're gonna work on Saturday to keep up with the schedule we've got. So their schedule isn't driven just by what they're doing for us.
Mhm.
So there's, but they ended up getting a full day's work in, didn't have to work on the Saturday they talked about.
Has the weather bothered them very much?
We had all those days where we missed in the morning and then they'd have to wait for it to dry out. But we still ended up being able to get in
Half days.
3/4, 2/3. So it's affected them, but the crew that was in doing rock on Friday, they were there because the state wouldn't let that crew work on a state job that they were working on. So they came in and did rock to have something to do, helps us get more progress.
Okay, allow claims and approve reports.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dennett, second from Sandquist. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No nuisance properties to consider this time around yet.
Nope.
So I would accept a motion to adjourn.
You have it.
I have a motion from Dennett, second from Hamilton. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting is closed.
Yeah. It's right on the front of what I sent